Welcome to those who have just joined us. This is a fool's guide to Revizto for designers. It being the 1st of April, I promise you that will be the only April Fool's joke. We'll start by introducing ourselves. So I'll just give you a brief introduction of me, and then I'll hand over to Peter to do the same. So I joined Revizto at the beginning of February, so coming into starting my third month. Previous to that, I used to work at the MBS in the UK, so hopefully quite a few of you will be familiar with those, National Building Specification, and then previous to that, I was actually working at Graphisoft, looking after ArchiCAD customers. So my background really is BIM authoring tools, and then obviously specification management, moving a lot of that into the cloud. So I have a reasonably good understanding of challenges from a wider design perspective, and I'm really excited to sort of show you what Revizto can do with assistance from Peter. But that's me. So I'll hand over.
Thanks, Ash. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Hi everybody, my name's Peter. I've been with Revizto for over a year now. I'm essentially an implementation manager for design-orientated customers, so architects, engineers, building services engineers, etc. Before working for Revizto, I was at Skanska, the contractor, for 4 years as a BIM manager, working in various on various projects. And before that, I was an architectural technologist for 5 years. And before that, I ran my own building company. So, a brief history there. So, you know, I have some good experience in the industry. I know what is expected and how the design office works. I also know how the contractors side works. So, yeah, I've got a good insight in terms of how everything runs and what's needed with the technical side and the software side.
Excellent. So yeah, I should have probably said at the end of that my role at Revizto is to look after designers and engineers. So within the UK and Ireland. So Peter and I work together on all of the accounts that I personally manage and potential new customers as well. So if it is something you were interested in and you do fit within that bracket, then please do get in touch after this. So just a brief agenda. We're going to have probably about 45 minutes worth of presentation slides, 10 minutes of Q&A, and then we might show you the software if we get a chance. Obviously I'm joking, it's another April Fool's joke. We aren't going to do any more slides. This is the end of it. We're going to go through the authoring tool integration, the design review, collaboration with the wider design team, and then there will be time at the end for a Q&A. Hopefully there'll be quite a few questions. That's obviously the best way to sort of demonstrate the software. But instead of kind of going through everything on a step-by-step basis, Peter's going to demonstrate the overarching feature or the overarching features and how they work, and then I'm going to sort of chuck a few scenarios at Peter, and he will be able to demonstrate what would happen given a few situations that I'm sure you're all aware of or experience on a daily basis. So Peter, I'll hand over to you. If you can take control, I'll sit back and just let you do all the work as usual.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so I need to share my screen. Okay, so bear with me. Sorry, I haven't used this for a while. Share my screen. And which screen are you seeing?
We can see your desktop now, so.
Okay, so can you see Revizto now?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I need to change that. Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Can you see that? Okay, thank you.
Cool.
So yeah, so we're looking at Revizto now. I'm going to go around this project first of all, just to show you what's what, and then we'll look at the integrations with some of our softwares. So this is Revizto. This is the 3D space that we're looking at. If I actually just open up this tool and show you what models essentially make up this space. And we have a lot of information in here. We've got Revit files, we have Navisworks files, we have OBJs, point clouds, MicroStation, Vectorworks, ArchiCAD, and SketchUp, all in this project here. So all of these models were actually pushed in from the native software, which I'll show you what that looks like in a second with one of our plugins. So as I said, there's a lot of information here coming from various sources, and there's an IFC in here as well. I'm actually going to just come out of this and go into one of my other projects. Bear with me, and it's a good chance for you to see, what the interface looks like before you open the project. So any project that you're invited to or you have access to, you'll see it basically there in that list. So if I open up Revit now, so here we have a Revit model. This is actually a federated Revit model of this medical center, and in here we have all of the linked files. So we have the services, the structure, etc. in here. With our plugins, once you installed the software, you pretty much most of our softwares, the plugin is installed silently. With a couple of softwares like MicroStation, for example, there are a couple of extra functions to actually activate the plugin. But in this example with Revit, it just lands in your software automatically. So to actually export this information into Revizto is very, very straightforward. You just click on Export to Revizto, and that's locked by another app. Bear with me, I'm just going to close this Navisworks function that I was doing earlier. Let's try that again. So with the plugins, actually, it's a good point to raise there. You can only have one sort of plugin or software connected to Revizto at a time, which isn't a problem normally. Anyway, so going back to what we're showing you just now, with the Export to Revizto tool, you again open that up, and you've got the option of exporting the model and the drawings. So you can either export just the model, or just the sheets, or both. And that's what you're exporting is essentially the 3D view. So you set up a 3D view. I've done that previously. I've called it Revizto Export View, and essentially everything in that view, that's what gets pushed into Revizto. And you can not just export your main Revit model, you can also export, if you choose, the links that make up that federated Revit file. In terms of the best workflow, there isn't one right or wrong answer. When I talk about workflows, I'm talking about whether you push one model into Revizto or you push a federated model into Revizto. If you're working on a larger project team, for example, you might ask that the structural engineer exports his information, the architect exports his information, etc., and everybody is responsible for exporting their own stuff, and that's achievable as well. With the sheets, you can, if you wanted to export sheets, you would tick that. You can export the sheets from the list. You can, you don't have to export all of them. You can export just some of them. So maybe you just want to export your sheets that have been published and shared on some common data environment, perhaps. And you can also actually export sheets from linked files. So you can export all of that stuff, not just from your project or model, but from all of the other consultants' models, if that's part of the workflow. I'm not going to go into too much more detail there. There is something here, though, that's worth mentioning. If you wanted to schedule that export, you can automate that process. So up here is essentially the same stuff that, or the same options as the Export to Revizto tool, But down here, in addition, you've got the option to export maybe on a Monday at 12 a.m. or however often you want at certain times during the week, and that would happen automatically. All you need for that to work is for your computer to be switched on, and you need to be logged into Windows, and your computer needs to be awake, i.e. not asleep. So if you're running it overnight, just bear those things in mind. But you can set it at once, and that's it. It's done. Once that gets pushed into Revizto, it will look something like this. And again, if I go to my my scenes and scheduler here, slightly quick with the mouse there, you can see here the different models that I've pushed in, and in this case I've got each model was exported from a separate Revit file, but as I said, you've got the option there. Would this be a good point to demonstrate the switchback function, Ash, or is that further down in the?
Let's do that later on. So I think, I mean, that gives a good overview of how the Revit exporter works. I had some scenarios even that kind of went into what you've already demonstrated. So one of those was if I wanted to automate the export process, so that I could always be sure that I was working on the latest model, then that's obviously something Peter's touched on. It can be set up and scheduled. If I wanted to just collaborate in 3D or 2D, so obviously the model can be split. You can select which side, if you like, is exported, and then that obviously led into, could that be automated to work within, I don't know, an internal delivery schedule, or perhaps your BEP, film execution plan delivery schedule. Peter's obviously demonstrated that as well. So there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to the authoring tool integration. It's not just Revit. We also work with Graphisoft ArchiCAD in the same way, and we have native tools with Bentley and some other elements as well. That's just from a plugin perspective, but we also support multiple file formats that can be imported independently, and Peter's just showing you those now. So we have what we like to think quite an umbrella approach to working with authoring tools. We're certainly not specific to one or another. We wouldn't be a particularly good collaboration platform if we only supported Revit, for example, and that wouldn't fit my personal views, having worked for ArchiCAD. So that's that.
And if I can just add to that, we're working increasingly with clients that have the design information coming from different sources, not just Revit and Civil 3D, for example, which is quite a common scenario for some of our large engineering clients, but also from MicroStation and Revit, or MicroStation, Revit and Civil 3D, or AutoCAD. And we're seeing a lot of those customers coming to us because Revizto offers that solution to bring everything together. And the point cloud is also something which is quite significant. I can't remember if that's further down the list again, Ash. I must apologise to everybody. I'm halfway through moving house, and I've just come back to work today to run this webinar, so I'm slightly lost on the order of things. But Ash is here to keep me in place.
I mean, that's just pure dedication for you.
Absolutely.
We'll move on to design review, so the next element in the agenda. So Peter, if you could just demonstrate the basic issue creation, the allocation, and then the chat logging in 2D and 3D. So perhaps if you wanted to open the Revizto, well, actually no, because I think I've got access to this model. So
yeah, I think you're in here as well, aren't you?
Yeah. So if you want to do the basic of issues there, and then obviously we can demonstrate the chat in the same model.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'll create an issue. I mean, just very briefly on sort of navigation as well. Let's just teleport down here. It's very easy to navigate around these models. It's their simple gaming controls. But say I come around here and I'm just going to come across an issue that I'm sort of thinking of. So perhaps I want this window or viewing panel to be obscure glazing, for example. I'll create another issue in a second, but I'll do a couple. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to, now I've navigated to this place in the model, I'm going to create an issue by using our stamp tool. There are a couple of different ways you can create issues, but I'm going to focus on creating issues with stamps, and a stamp is essentially a predefined issue template, essentially. So I'm going to select on my stamps. This opens your list of stamps or predefined issues. I'm going to select from my architecture stamp category, and I'm just going to, this is just a question or query that I've got that I'm going to assign to Ash. So I'm going to select on the appropriate stamp, and I'm going to place that here. What that's done is that's created an issue with one click, essentially. And if and there's certain things you can do to add information and further that query that I've just raised. So I'm actually going to jump into the issue tracker here, and to note we have 3 main areas of Revizto. You've got the 2D space, which are where the drawings are, the 3D space, obviously the model, and then the issue tracker. So this is a very important aspect of Revizto, and one of the key things that what the software is about, essentially, is managing and tracking information and issues as they get created. So I've just created that issue with one stamp. That what's happened is a screenshot's basically been taken of the model at the time, and we can see here we've got some columns which hopefully we'll have time to explain what that is. But I'm going to carry on with this. I'm just going to minimize those. I'm going to fit that. I'm going to edit this markup so I can now start to draw on the screenshot, essentially. And you've got various tools. You can obviously change the colors and all the rest of it. I can keep that yellow for now. And I'm just going to sort of mark this up quite crudely. And I'm going to add a note here. Should this, luckily there's a spell check for my sake, obscure glazing. For example, obviously it's just a fairly random question, but for purposes of this demonstration, I think that's fine. So I've just marked it up, and if I expand my columns here again, let's just fit that there. I'm going to assign this to Ash. So you can pre-assign people with the stamp templates, but I'm going to assign Ash here. So I'm basically asking Ash a question now. This issue has now been assigned to him as the responsible person, and I'm going to ask him. I'm going to say, "Hi Ash, I can't remember if this should be clear." Right, just again, a bit of a random question. Okay, send. So what's just happened now is I've sent this notification to Ash. He would have received an instant notification if he's in the software, a little ping sound, which you can turn off if that becomes annoying over time. If you get a big project with a lot of issues, that can all be controlled. But Ash would have also received an email, and again, the settings of the frequency of those emails can be tailored to however you like. So that's what we're looking at. I'm also going to change the priority here. I'm going to say, this isn't really a major priority. Ash, can you find that issue? I'll let Ash have a look at that in a second. But yeah,
It's there now.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so you're correct. Should be frosted. Okay, great. So that's essentially how you create an issue and how you communicate. If I wanted to jump back into the model now, I can select on 3D there, and I'm back in the model, and you can obviously move around and check things. But in addition to seeing things in 3D, I can also see where this issue is in 2D. And now this is a key. Let me just 3922. Just filter that. So I've just got that one issue being filtered here. So I can see where this issue is in 3D and 2D, as I said. But it's not just a drawing, it's any drawing that's affected by this issue. So any drawing that sits within that 3D space, you can find basically. I'm sure I've got a GA somewhere. There you go. There's my GA plan, and again I can see where that issue is. Now I'm going to do that again just one more time to create another issue, just to, again to sort of drive that point home and to also show you how easy it is. So I'm coming through the model. I'm going to use my sectioning cut tool. I had something selected there. Bear with me. Okay, do that again. Okay, right. Just cut a section there. Very, very straightforward to cut sections in Revizto. I'm looking through the model. Okay, there's a clash. Surprise, surprise. The M is clashing, or the mechanical stuff's clashing with the steel frame, which is obviously quite a common thing. So I'm going to create an issue again. I'm going to use my stamps. I'm going to say that's a clash, and I'm going to move that there and click done. So again, very, very easy and quickly, I've created that issue, and I've assigned it. Well, at the moment it's assigned to Mike because again that's been pre-assigned to him because he's the mechanical PM, but I want to actually reassign that to Ash. And again, you can run through that exercise again, but I'm not going to do that. But a couple of different examples. I'm going to actually do that in 2D as well. So let's come into 2D. Let's maybe find some sections. Just search in there, and I'm trying to find a decent. Let me just maybe create an issue here. So this is a hallway. I'm going to create an issue here. I'm going to call this maybe an architectural query again, and you can again run through everything. And I'm not going to do it, but it's the same process. But what I wanted to show you is that the fact that I created this in 2D, it doesn't matter. I can see where that is in 3D again. So there it is in the hall. I was just going to ask the question: is this hallway wide enough? It's a fire escape. Should it be wider? Something like that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I think that covers the basics of issue creation. So I have some scenarios here. So Peter, that's great. And obviously the issues are housed, if you like, within Revizto, but how do I then find these in my authoring environment?
Okay, yeah, good question. So again, it doesn't matter which software you're in, this switchback that I'm about to demonstrate works with most of the softwares we support, the plugins. If you're unsure, then you can ask that question and we can feed that back. But so I'm in Revit. I'm going to come back to Revizto here. Actually, the first thing I need to do is make sure that's connected. So I'm just going to click on the issue tracker. That's now connecting this Revit session to Revizto. So if I go to maybe my demo, let's just find that. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. This is an issue that was created in Revizto. Essentially, I created a section box around this area. So if I want to find that in my model, I just double click. I think I double click then. Yeah, something's happening. So that's now instantly taking me to where that section box is inside of Revit. So what Revizto does, it creates this view called Revizto Isometric in Revit, and if I just keep wanting to toggle through and find different views, I'll just again double click on that, and that will take me to that view, and it just recycles that view essentially. Obviously, if you wanted to save any of these views, you could. You can also create issues from Revit into Revizto. I haven't got any section boxes created. I could do, but I'm just conscious of time. But if I wanted to create an issue from here, say, let's try and just come a bit closer. So I can say new issue. That's going to again connect to Revizto. that's going to, again, take the screenshot essentially of that environment in Revit. I can do create a manual issue if I want, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use my stamps again, just call that architectural query. And that has essentially created an issue in Revizto, even though that was done in Revit. And you can see there in 3D, the camera view that you're in, or that you are in the native filtering software, that again gets replicated inside of Revizto. This switchback as well doesn't just rely on issues being created. You can select object, or you can switch back straight from the 3D environment now. That's new to Revizto 5. If I select some of these panels and click on my scissors, that's automatically going to cut a section box around here, which I can, make bigger, rotate, do whatever I like. But say I'm happy with that. Okay, so I've not done anything here apart from just create a section box around these solar panels. If I right click and switch back to Revit, that should, there you go, find that exact section box in Revit. So you can very easily find things and very quickly do that.
Okay, that's great. So the next area was, do I have to create an issue and assign it the same way every time? Obviously, Peter has covered that. The use of stamps, which can be either created solely by yourself, or we can help you create them during the sort of the beginning implementation period, which allows you to either create an issue manually or use a predefined stamp with predefined information, designing, launcher, the tags, etc.
Yeah, and I can add something to that if I may, Ash. Just a couple of scenarios with the stamps. What we're looking at here is a stamp template that I've created for this architectural project. You've essentially got each discipline with a particular set of stamps, and then you've got some other activities like health and safety, site activities, etc. So you can use Revizto not just to look at the design and validate design information, but if you are still working on the project when it gets to site, you can maybe go to site, take a 360 photo and tag that. That's sort of heavily weighted towards buildings. I wanted to very quickly show you this one, and I'll jump back into the other project, Ash. But this is, we are servicing designers as a whole. This is a civil project. Not too important about where this is or anything. But if I go to the stamps again, this is a slightly different setup for geared towards civil, the highway civil in this case project, where you've got construction structures, drainage, highways. It's slightly different to the buildings scenario that we just demonstrated. So it's completely up to you and bespoke how you set those up. But if you do get some Revizto licenses, I can help you set those things up.
Okay, so scenario number 3 is that I'm managing the design team on this project. So while I'm not necessarily creating issues, I want to see a high-level overview of what my colleagues are doing.
Yeah, that's a very good question. As you say, a lot of the more senior people on the project team won't necessarily be in the software itself, but there's a very easy way to visualize what's going on. If I go to my issue tracker and click on reporting, that opens a web page which is opened up on another screen. It's just drag that across, and this takes you to something called the Revizto workspace, which is essentially a portal to your project and other tools, which I'm not going to go into too much detail now. But in terms of visualizing issues and tracking those, you can set up these dashboards essentially. And in this for this project, I've got 3 dashboards set up. This particular one is called Design Issues General Overview, and in each dashboard you can create these charts. And again, these are completely bespoke, and what you're doing is essentially filtering issues based on a particular piece of information, and you can create these really good visuals. This is one, for example, called All Design Issues. This is giving me all of the issues irrespective of status. So it's giving me the historic picture of what's happened in this project. Let's have a look at one down here. There's a bar chart. Obviously, this is all issues by assignee, so I can see all of the issues, even if they've been closed, which are assigned to each individual on the project. So Alan, architect, clearly has a lot to do. Not as much as Mike, mechanical. He's got 243 open issues, 22 closed out. Alan's got 182 open issues and a few closed out. So yeah, it gives you a good indication as to who's doing what on the project. This is quite a nice one as well. This is a chart which shows us each discipline and how many issues, or why say how many issues, how many current issues, so they're the open and in progress issues on the project. So I can see, back in November, there was obviously a bit going on. On January the 1st, suddenly architecture had quite a lot of issues. So it's a really good graphic of and a timeline of what's going on. So that's great for project managers.
Okay, so then the other element of this dashboard is reporting. So if we could just cover how the reporting works and the fact that they can be automated, then that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Okay, so the reports are slightly different from the dashboards, whereas the dashboards give you a count, essentially, of issues, depending on how you filter them. Reports give you a list of the issues and details of all of those. So you'll see the screenshots and a lot more detail for each of those issues. And you can configure those in whichever way you like. You can decide whether it's visible just to the author or people that you invite. You can have some issues that are private issues, some that are public. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can actually report out. You can, as Ash mentioned, we can automate these to be automatically sent to a certain person. So there's a scheduling function here, so I can say, every week, maybe on a Monday at 9 o'clock, I can send that to myself and Ash, for example. And if I save that, we'll get an email with this report every Monday at 9 o'clock. You can also send spreadsheets, so exactly the same principle, but just in a spreadsheet form as opposed to a PDF. And you can actually send these to people outside of the project as well, or you might wish to just have a certain periods or periodically throughout the project, this data could be printed off essentially with the PDF, and then you could save that somewhere else. Some of my clients like to have that as a record. So yeah, there you go. That's reporting.
Thank you. Good. Yeah. So the final scenario in the design review section is what happens to the issues that you've created when the models or the drawings are updated.
Okay. So a good question. I'm trying to think of a good example of an issue that I can find. If you bear with me a second, I might be able to find one in here. So essentially, the issue, everything that happens around the issue when you create it, so the screenshot, the updated markups, any additional information that you might want to add to that issue, that always gets retained within the issue tracker itself. So let me come across to this. Let's see if we've got any demo. There you go. There's something here. Okay, this is just a quick one actually. I mentioned attaching the data to the issue. You can actually attach photos and 3D photos to issues. So again, all that stays within the issue itself. Let me have a look at. So this is a good example that Lewis created actually. So when the issue was first created, there's the screenshot these blue, steel columns need to be taken out, and that was requested, by Lewis. He said, look, can you take these out? That was then done by whoever was, assigned that task. And if I wanted to check whether that's been done, I can go to the 3D model, and I can see here now that actually, yes, the thing that I asked has been done. So as the whatever you need to fix gets fixed in the native model, that gets updated and then re-exported to Revizto, and the models essentially is a live representation of the current status of the design, but the history is also here to see what's happened before. Hopefully that answers your question, Ash.
Absolutely, yeah. It's also worth noting that the issues as they're created are coordinate based. They can be object based at the same time, but it's quite beneficial. Let's say you take a particular 2D sheet out and replace it with another, that issue will still stay in the same place. They are not specific to that sheet or object. It's quite a strength within Revizto that these issues are coordinates based, and that's kind of how the 3D and the 2D overlay also work. So it might be worth just quickly showing the 2D overlay, Peter, if you can, really quick.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Let's go for this one. Let's have a look at the info there. So when sheets are exported from an intelligent software like Revit, for example, Revizto knows where that sheet was created. So let's go back to 2D. When that is intelligent, you get this little house symbol. So if I click on that, you get this this overlay, which I need to take that section off, I think. Bear with me. Let's try that again. Okay, so as Ash was saying, we get this 2D 3D overlay, which is really quite impressive, and you can start to interrogate what's going on with the drawing and the model overlaid. And what we're seeing here actually is the drawing, the model, but also the point cloud, which is sections. So all of these things in the same place that you can start to interrogate. And if I wanted to look at the non-graphical data that's associated with those objects, I can also have a look at that. And if I wanted to create an issue with that, I could. So let me just pick one there. So here I've created this issue with that screenshot essentially of that the drawing overlaid, and you can see you can even create issues with that view. Let me just try one more over here. So ground floor, typical ground floor layout, and that again is quite nice that you can see what's happening there. You can push that up and down. You can actually detach the sheet, and you can pull the model through. So there's quite a lot of sort of flexibility. You can even come down here, bit of a weird one, but you can see the drawing, from below. Let me just undo that. So this is really good for all people on the project team, irrespective of whether they like viewing stuff in 3D or 2D. If you want to look at the 2D stuff, you can. If you want to look at the 3D stuff, you can. If you want to overlay them, even better. So that's a really, really useful function.
Okay, so we're going to move on to collaboration with wider design team. So Peter's already illustrated the multiple file types within Revizto. I think if we just jump into the scenarios where Peter's already shown that you can overlay a 2D drawing over a point cloud. You can create an issue in that way, which we covered as well. So if we move on to the next scenario, the lead architect, so still staying on this collaboration with the wider design team, the lead architect on the project is dealing with the clash detection. How do I get the clashes from Navisworks into Revizto? And then can I filter them based on that?
Yeah, absolutely, you can. So with our software support, our plugins, this is Navisworks. So you can see the Revizto 5 tab. If I wanted to export my clashes or send my clashes to Revizto, very, very straightforward. Let me click on the Sync Clashes tool. That'll take just a few seconds to load up the clashes. So the first step before we do this, you run your clash test in Navisworks, you group your clashes, you do all of that work, but where the workflow changes is at the point that you have to then assign things to people and track what's going on, after those issues have been assigned to, or after those clashes have been assigned to various people. What happens? Are they closed out? It's an absolute nightmare, right, to try to track what's going on. With this tool, I would just sync the clashes. You can select which tests you export, which clashes within those tests you export, similar to the sheet. So you've got choice there. And once you do that, you have those clashes. They basically, issues are created for each clash or each clash group, which I'll show you now. Okay, so I'll go to my issue tracker. With the filtering here, it's a very, very powerful way to filter issues depending on what you're trying to find. If I go to the custom filter here for a second and click on type, we can filter issues by issue type, and Revizto knows or recognizes a Navisworks clash as a clash type issue essentially. So if I click on clash, here are all of my clashes that have been synced from Revizto, and as I said, issues are created from those clashes. So if I just click on this one, ducts versus pipes, that's your screenshot from Navisworks. And again, I can go to 3D, I can find that issue in 3D, I can find that issue in 2D again. And what I'm doing at the moment is filtering, as I said, all of the issues, which are clashes essentially. And when you do that, if I just minimize those and go to 2D a second, you can see them, whatever filtering that you've got active, that's what you can see on the drawing. So, a lot of clashes in the roof, surprise, surprise, most of the clashes are M&E. So there's ducts and pipes and stuff clashing all over the place. That's why you've got all of these in here. Yeah, and you can also filter by clash test. So here I've got my various clash tests. Let's reset that a second. So if I want to find just my ducts versus pipes, there's just one in there. There's 19 for my ductwork versus structure, and you can very easily assign these in bulk if you wanted to. So if I wanted to assign all of my ductwork versus structure clashes to Mike mechanical, for example, I just pick all, edit, and assign. Let's find Mike. So Mike's the project manager for mechanical services, and I can apply that. You can also apply stamp template information to issues as well, which I'm not going to go into too much detail now, but you can in effect apply all of the data that you've set up in your stamp templates to clashes essentially. And again, if I wanted to find this clash in Revit, I can double click on that and find that in Revit, even though it's come from Navis.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm conscious of time, so we're just going to go over these last two scenarios really quickly. I need to make my Revizto model easy to navigate for the client. Is there a way to guide them around the model? I don't think we need to cover that. I think it's really simple. The one point maybe to mention is that also the rooms information comes straight through from Revit. So if you wanted to, you can navigate using that particular function. There's also some other added functionality in there that's relatively simple, but I don't think we require any time on that. And then finally, we've been asked to use BIM 360 on this project. Does it integrate with that particular piece of software?
Yeah, so you can essentially connect your BIM 360 project to Revizto, and you can open the drawings from BIM 360 in Revizto. That's essentially how the integration works. So yeah, there you go. So I've opened up a drawing that's in BIM 360 and I can view it. You can also transfer the BIM 360 2D sheet to your Revizto 2D space to basically convert that into a drawing in that way, and the overlay can work in certain scenarios as well.
Okay, great. So I think that pretty much covers all of what we wanted to discuss. We've got a few questions for the last 10 minutes, so I'm just going to go through these now. So the first question is, how secure is the cloud server? So there's many ways I can answer that question, but first and foremost, what I wanted to clarify is there's two ways in which to host a project within Revizto. For true collaboration to work as the way it should, then we are advising or recommending that the project is hosted in the cloud. It allows more people to collaborate, but you can also host a project locally. So if you're working on a sensitive project or for whatever reason, it can be stored on your own server. However, the issue information is then sent to the cloud and retrieved from the cloud from a collaboration perspective. We use AWS as our primary cloud source. We are working on various ISO accreditations, which we're hoping to be towards the end of the year. But if you have any specific project questions, then just drop me an email or Peter an email and we can go through them on a more specific basis. But I suppose, how secure is the cloud server? We'd have to know exactly what you'd need to know out of that. But I think one of the key elements here is that it can be stored locally if that's what you need. Okay, so the next question is, this exports everything that's in the model. Is there a way to not do that, or do I need to go through an IFC export? So I'm assuming that question is more specific than, can I split 2D and 3D?
I can maybe answer that question. So
Yeah.
it goes back to my earlier statement really of when you export information from the 3D view essentially. So whatever's in the 3D view, that's what you export. If you don't want that model to be exported, you just hide it. And it's as simple as that.
Okay, we've got a bit of clarification on this one. So regards to having more info in the middle, then I want to export from the authoring application to Revizto. Example would be either not all of the geometry or not all of the attributes that would be mapped with, say, an IFC.
Yeah, all of the attributes would come through. So you'd have to manage that in a different way. But the geometry, it's just whatever's visible is exported, whatever's hidden isn't, and that's it.
Okay. So next question, how large do these files get if multiple models are pushed in? So Peter, could you just, rather than me sharing my screen, could you just go to the Revizto project dashboard and then click on a cog of Revistoville, and that will just show you that the project cache size, well, it's 4.2, which is much higher than mine. I'm not sure why that's 4.2 gigabytes, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah. So I mean, if I can just add some detail there, especially with Revizto 5, we handle models very, very efficiently. So we're seeing some massive projects inside of Revizto, and you can when you get to your really huge projects, and I'm talking some of the mega projects in the Middle East or some big infrastructure projects around the UK and other places. We really do deal with some very large data. The hardware that's required to manage that and push it into Revizto, is a separate question. But once it's in Revizto, it's very easily managed and it's very efficient. And you can have very big projects on an iPad, for example. That's really what you need to know, is that you can navigate around a very complex, and we've got 20 gigabyte point clouds of the Natural History Museum on an iPad, and you can just navigate it like you're playing a computer game. So yeah, handles it very well.
Yeah, as it's built on a gaming engine, it's much more efficient than, say, having it all in Revit. So one thing that I just wanted to point out here is that there is an option there to download for field. we do have the full functionality of Revizto within a tablet environment as well. We haven't covered it because we just simply don't have that much time, but there is the ability to download a particular project directly to your tablet and use that without internet access, perhaps on site. Here's one scenario you could use it, and then as soon as you then get internet access again, all of the issues you've created, etc., will be exported and updated. So although we haven't really had time to go through that, it is available. Okay, so next question, issue logs, are they exportable for audit and records? So yeah, we've covered that. You can export all your issues via a spreadsheet or a PDF if you wanted to, so you can save those independently. Okay.
You can also export an exe file, which is essentially a record of the project with or without issues, depending on how you filter them. And you can also export drawings with issued data on there and markups if you're marking up drawings. So there's various ways in which you can export that information.
Do stamps come predefined in Revizto? So the answer is no. However, we can help you define those from an implementation perspective. So while they don't come already there, we can create and help you create them depending on what your requirements are.
Yeah, you can download an example set of stamps. So this is a project which is just another copy of the one we were just in. If I add demo stamps, you basically get these, and that's the sort of default set. But again, I can help you if you're a client to develop these further.
Okay, so what if a user uploaded a new revision and it's not connected to the previous version? Is there a way to fix this afterwards?
Yeah, so you can actually revert to, let's see if I've got any revisions in here. I need to, whilst I'm doing this, so yes, you can essentially revert back to an older version of the project. So you can either do that and just view that in its state that it was in previously, and you can also make that the current version if you wanted to. So.
Okay, great. And then final question, can you measure in the point cloud?
Yeah, you can. Very good question. So if we come back here, let's open this one. So that's actually a feature we're very proud of, which was fairly recently developed. Quite a difficult thing to do by all accounts. Obviously, point clouds have millions of points. So let's just come over here. Let's cut a section, and I'll show you quickly how that works. So I've created a section there. Let's just come inside. Okay, so.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. So that's measuring from not just the point cloud, but the BIM, the model to the cloud. So yes, is the answer.
Okay, great. And that pretty much covers everything. I just want, well, yeah, I was going to start a poll, which was going to cover that. However, that seems to have closed itself, opened itself, and then closed itself immediately afterwards. So I'm not sure we're going to be able to do that. That pretty much draws everything to a close. I think we've gone through all of the questions. I think we've covered everything. Let me just give it another check. Yeah, we've covered everything. So this webinar has been recorded, and copies of it will be sent out to everybody who registered. If you have any questions, then please do feel free to get in touch. You'll all get an email either from myself or Peter just saying thanks for your attendance. But Peter, unless you've got anything else to cover, I think we should leave it there.
No, I haven't got anything to add. I think we've covered all the main points.
Okay, excellent. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm sorry that the weather isn't as good as it was yesterday, but maybe that's a good thing. So while more people attended. But yeah, have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your week.